so maximizing memory. So start out strong. Remember best what we learn at the beginning of a lesson. So make sure you address the most important concepts first. Narrow your focus. When similar concepts are taught together, they are more likely to be confused. So this is especially important for test prep sessions that may cover various sections of a test. Rather than teaching multiple math concepts in the same lesson, break the session into lessons that address a key math concept and then go on to verbal or reading exercises. Be sure to return to check for understanding or retention before you end your session. Give breaks for new concepts to solidify. When we learn new concepts, and our brain needs time to process information for long-term storage. If too much new information is presented at once, a student can hit a point of cognitive overload where no learning can happen. Cognitive overload is a situation where the teacher gives too much information or too many tasks to learners simultaneously, resulting in a learner being unable to process this information. Once cognitive overload happens, frustration is bound to follow if you do not allow a break. Be mindful of your students' mood and stress during the session. Part of our role as instructors is to provide students with strategies to regulate their emotions to optimize learning. No one learns well when he or she is preoccupied with negative emotions. When you notice that your student is running on negative energy, bring it up as a casual way and offer a non-academic break to recharge. Okay, this is really, really important because students come, especially the students that come right after school, they don't get a break. So I don't know, do you have any students that come right after school?
I think I have one, but I think he has a short break, but it's
but you
not
never
enough
know.
for him.
Right.
He tells me.
Yeah. Well,
that's
good. Yeah. No, and that's good. So that's like when you notice that, you might want to just like have a little bit longer introduction and just kind of like play a game or hang out. And if you feel like a student is getting too overwhelmed or getting frustrated, just take a breather and have them like have a stretch break or play a quick game in the middle. It's okay to do that because if you keep pushing them, they're not gonna learn and they're not gonna do well. So that is very important. Okay, so the Socratic method of critical thinking. Employ the Socratic method of questioning-based discussion to develop critical thinking skills. Engaging students in meaningful dialogue about their content knowledge and study skills strengthens critical thinking. Respond to student question with questions such as, what do you think? Or what strategy resource can you use to find the answer? Deepen thinking through exploring concepts in a discussion in which you guide the student to convey his or her understanding of a specific concept. Apply Socratic method to review of earlier material to model effective studying. So our sessions, I like to have my sessions us work together. So the Socratic method really comes in play when you're asking them questions or you're asking them to like teach you something. Like for math, this is really cool because you can teach them a concept and then you can have them teach them, or you can have them teach you. Sometimes when I do a problem, like when they're the teacher, sometimes I make a mistake so I know that they're understanding the steps to the math problem. And then they can go back and be like, oh, Carolyn, you didn't get that, you did this instead, so that you know that they're actually learning and that they understand the steps. Okay, so coaching to sharpen skills. Develop metacognition thinking by having students explain what they're doing and what they're thinking when they're doing it right. Coach them to review, analyze their work, to self-correct mistakes and learn from them as well. Celebrate mistakes as growth opportunities. Congratulate students on addressing a mistake head on or being open to learn from it. You can give the student an extra prize from our prize box or let them choose a sticker to decorate their binder as a needed or as an added bonus. Be sure to share these winning moments in the session reports so that parents can join on the positive reinforcements. Use the SMART STARS method to encourage attention to detail and independent self-correction of mistakes. Create a T-chart to record stars for the student on one side and points for you on the other. Explain that the student will get 1 star for every mistake he or she catches. You can get 1 star for every mistake the student misses that you have to point out. The student has the opportunity to earn an additional stars for self-correcting the mistakes. Apply to math and editing step of the writing process or homework help on written responses. Allow the student to monitor his or her performance for improvement. Share student record charts to illustrate student progress in specific programs. Discuss learning plan goals and student gains towards achieving these goals. Provide specific praise to highlight what exactly a student is doing right. Celebrate improvements or independent completion of assignments. Focus on areas in which students struggle, such as attention to detail or silly mistakes in calculations. Other applications. So encourage the student to compete against him or herself to build speed of recall and math facts by using a timer to record performance on math warm-ups for addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division facts. You can also track progress through simple drills on worksheets from our math fact workbooks. Monitor progress in reading, comprehension, and fluency through use of graphs and timers. So this is a really important way that you guys can work on your sessions together. So have them be aware of their goals that we set for them. Have them see their charts when they're coloring their fluency or they're coloring from their word list or their Wilson, so that they can see the progress that they have made already. And that is really important because that keeps them in a positive mindset instead of a negative mindset when they're like, oh my goodness, I'm still on this concept. So make sure that you're constantly giving them positive feedback and that they are motivated enough to keep going and to keep learning through little competitions or looking out for the mistakes. Okay. Questions?
So,
Yes.
guess a comment.
Yeah.
So I started with one student last week where
Okay.
we're working on the high school entrance exam prep.
Is it for the Catholic? Yeah.
And what we talked about in the beginning was I just asked him what he felt he needed from the session, and he was able to say that he needed to work on improving his time and just with help with the math concepts and things like that. So I felt like that helped him make the session about what he wants to get out of it.
That's perfect. Yeah, and that is really, I think that's really important with our test prep. With our test prep students, either if it be the HSPT or the ISE. Even when you get up in the springtime when we get more SAT, ACT students, because these are the schools that they have the choice to go to. It's not public; they're all private. And then their colleges, they get to choose what colleges they get to. So it's really important for them to have that, give us that feedback and say what they think they need to work on, or after a practice test when they come in to take practice tests on Saturdays and Sundays, how they felt about that practice test and what they would like to improve on after taking that test. So I think that was a great idea, especially when a student. A lot of our students' parents are not happy with the public schools, or they want their child to go to a private school, and the student might not want to go to a private school. So making sure that they, that they kind of let us know what they want to work on, so that it becomes more about what they want to do versus us and their parents too. Just be no, you're doing this because we want you to go to this school. So that's also a really good point to just keep in mind.
And then I was also trying to, any unknown words, I was trying to incorporate things that they liked or things that might help them remember based on their everyday. And that seemed to be, was oh yeah, that makes sense, or that's a good example. And I felt like that was keeping them engaged in the learning.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, anytime that you can relate to real life examples or what their interest is, it's going to help them remember it more. Like, for example, kids that, like, I told the kids I did not like history growing up at all. I'm getting more into it because I think it's interesting, but as a kid, I did not like it at all. So, how my dad and I would sit down and study for my history test is we would make it into a story, because that's how I would learn it. Instead of like being like, oh, I need to learn this key term and then this key term and then this and this date, we would make it into kind of like a story / a play, so that would be easier for me to like learn it and memorize the information. Mm-hmm. So any way that you can like incorporate prior knowledge or what they like or to real life examples, it's going to help them enjoy learning the concepts and relate it and learn it more effectively. So that was awesome, yeah. Vocabulary words are hard, especially for those tests. Mm-hmm. And so it's just super important to, put it in the sentence context and, like, relate it. Like, sportscasters use this word all the time. Or, when you go to the mall or something, or when you go here, you'll hear this, so that this word being said so that they can kind of put it in context. And then, like, looking at, like, the root words, too, for that is super important. Any other questions before we move on? Or comments? Okay. Okay, so effective study skills for independent learners. So teach active learning strategies and study tools. Discuss with your student his or her preferred ways of learning and provide tools for his or her unique learning style. Provide your student with suggestions to enhance his or her learning profile. Use word webs to develop vocabulary skills and build reading fluency with special attention to multiple meaning words. Use concept or mind maps to illustrate concepts and content areas, lessons, history, science, English, whatever, math, and diagram story elements. Make graphic organizers to help the student conceptualize and organize information such as tables, Venn diagrams, and flowcharts. Teach explicit lists of reading comprehension strategies and steps for problem solving. Discuss which ones are more or less effective for each student. Implement problem-solving steps for math word problems. Use mental imagery and drawings to improve memory of vocabulary words and key terms to content areas or mathematics. Put illustrations or flashcards on keep in a flipbook. Teach multiple-step writing process for an essay assignment. Ensure editing of work for as part of any written assignment. Empower students to succeed through effective learning and study strategies for their specific learning style. Collaborate with your colleagues to figure out what the best approach is for the student with specific learning disabilities, anxiety, or ADHD. And so here are some examples. For kinesthetic learners or ADHD students, reinforce their need to connect movement with learning through repetitive writing, focus on neat handwriting, to create clear mental images for later reference. Teach students that there is a neurometer connection between handwriting and memory that typing cannot replicate. Try writing on different surfaces. So the whiteboard, notepad, the boogie board we have in there, even the grass wall in there is fun. Or with different tools. So like Centum pencils, pens, colored pencils to add variety. Ensure students have strong note-taking skills or receive copies of teacher lecture outlines to facilitate their engagement in lecture-style classes. For visual learners, make graphic representations of verbal information in tables, charts, graphs, illustrations, or graphic organizers. Encourage students to write neatly to help with a lasting mental image or remember later. Reference pictures or videos outlined to create a picture of concepts that could be difficult to visualize from language alone. Make vocabulary cartoons to create a strong understanding of new terms. Model and teach prioritization and use a visual schedule checklist to manage workload. Encourage students to implement these practices into their independent work time at home and or at school and at home. Help students chunk assignments into meaningful units of work instead of trying to attack the whole workload at once. Encourage students to build in breaks between assignments while they are working at home. Prompt students to articulate the steps of a process or procedure. Create opportunities for them to practice recalling these steps. Coach students through steps of the process by explaining what to do next. Think of a yoga teacher explaining how to get into a complicated pose step by step. Make a color-coded list and have the students rewrite their own lists. Refer to checklists on a regular basis. Have students check off their list to reinforce their use of each step. Model and encourage positive self-talk. Replace students' negative mantra, so I can't do this, I'm not good at it, this is too hard, with more positive statements. Refer back to bigger goals and use simple praising. I know I can do this. Goes a long way in a moment or self-doubt. Okay. Perfect. So, any questions on anything so far that we've talked about?
No questions.
No questions? Comments?
I think everything is very useful, and it provides, different ideas and different ways of being able to do things. That way, if you sort of run into a difficult session or anything like that, there's always something else.
There's
that
always
you
a
can
backup.
use.
And that's why in a lot of our trainings for the specific programs that we have, we give you, I don't know if you've noticed this already with your trainings you've done previously, but we give you several handouts and several organizers that you can use depending on what you like to use and what your student likes to use or use. So that, and that's really helpful because some students learn differently. And so having that backup and those different ideas depending on the students and their needs is really helpful. And like Vita and all the other instructors here have done things that I've learned from them, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even think of that. So that's why it's super important for us to just as instructors to keep in constant communication with each other and share ideas, and so to help our sessions be the most productive and meaningful sessions for our students. So I would like to have a meeting maybe every other month with all their instructors to kind of just sit in a circle and to give you guys updates, and then to share ideas and problems and success stories so that we can all use those ideas for all of our students. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing for the ISC meeting in December.
Okay.
So it'll be good. Yeah. So before we talk about any other questions that you have, we're gonna do this little activity. So we talked a lot about metacognition today, and so I want you to just kind of take a few minutes and to write down everything that you have learned about developing metacognition for your student. And then I'm going to give you a few minutes to work on this, and then we're going to go over some ideas. And I already have some ideas written down, so we can make sure that you have everything written down for your training that you can use and look back on. you know, like.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm done.
So okay, cool. So what did you come up with?
So I just basically summarized the things that I learned from this training.
Mhm.
So the things that I learned is that organization is key, and you have to stay organized with your working folder and anything related to the session. And then for students, to help them remember what they're learning is making pictures for unknown terms or breaking down their learning into pictures if that helps them better. And to change up the environment as much as you can, using different colors, sitting on different chairs, moving around the room. Always give them breaks.
Perfect.
Talk about other things in their lives, in their day.
Good.
Give them feedback to help motivate them, rewards, any positive reinforcers that you can use. Use the visual schedule and check their learning through drills. So warm-ups, math warm-ups, writing warm-ups, anything like that.
Perfect. You got I mean, just even through my example right here that I have in my training binder, you got everything on the spot. That is super important. I love everything that you said. One last thing about kind of what we talked about is the asking questions part of it. So having the students ask questions. What's important about that? Let's add that into your chart.
Help them feel comfortable enough to ask you any questions, and I think that would go back to my one about talking about other things, or because by helping them build that rapport, then they'll most likely be more comfortable to feel that they can ask any question.
Perfect, yeah. And then just thinking on top of my head too, we talked a lot about having them be in control, or not having them be in control, but having them be aware of their objectives and their progress on how well they're doing. Especially the good and good strides that we see throughout their tracking sheets and their graphs. Why do you think it's important for us to actually show them those graphs and show them that they're doing a good job in their strides?
Because if they feel that, their perspective might be, oh, I'm here because I need that extra help, and that might not be something that they're very comfortable with. So for them to actually see their progress and see that they're actually working through their goals and achieving them will help boost up their confidence in their education.
Perfect, yeah. It's just on the leading path, and you want to teach them that this is a learning process and that we're learning to get them more, not just coming to tutoring and getting to do a checklist, oh, I got this done, I'm doing this, is to provide lifelong learning and to provide those strategies that they will use throughout their entire life. Awesome. So that wraps up our Magna Cognition training. Do you have any last questions before we move on?
No other questions.
Awesome. Yay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.